Folks, a really wonderful thing happened a couple days ago. Okay? A couple days ago, Fox News aired a segment that was supportive of a transgender youth. Alright? Now, we're gonna watch this segment, and then we're gonna see how fucking furious conservatives are just knowing that a single trans kid is loved and accepted. Okay?
Walking down the street, you wouldn't think anything different.
14-year-old Ryland Whittington is a typical Southern California teenager. And the Whittingtons, along with mom Hillary, dad Jeff, and sister Brinley, are a typical family. The only difference, though, in Ryland's eyes, is what this family can mean to the tens of thousands of kids under 18 who identify as transgender.
We put our story out there so people could see that, like, there's another family out there that is going through what we're going through, or there's another family who's proud of who they are.
Before Ryland could even speak, he managed to tell his parents that he is a boy.
I could just see that it wasn't him trying to be a brat. It was like painful. It was truly painful for him to have to wear feminine clothing and for us constantly telling him that you're a girl.
And unlike some trans kids, when Ryland came out at age 5 a few years later, he had the full support of his parents.
Initially,
Yay.
there was some pushback from us in trying to understand this.
We were confused like most people are. We thought that gender and sexuality were the same thing. It took us a while to figure out that those two things are different and that children actually do recognize their gender identity very young. Some of them.
Yeah, the wild part about this is that this is a white family, a suburban family, a somewhat conservative leaning family, and they didn't immediately hate their child or disown them or like fucking be awful to them. Crazy. They decided they would love their kid. I know, wild, right?
Not all.
But they listened to Ryland and to Hillary's conservative faith.
For me, it's just a deep spiritual belief that you believe in God and he, created.
Oh shit. And they're deeply religious. Excellent. I can see why this is triggering the shit out of the deeply conservative religious pundits.
He wanted us, well then yes, he created Ryland just the way he is.
And they listened to families. They met in support groups.
There was a father who was sitting across the table. He says, "You have no idea how lucky you are to be here," which kind of took me back. I didn't at that point consider myself lucky to be there. And he said, our child had displayed this gender dysphoria or this gender misalignment at the same age that Ryland has. And we didn't listen and we pushed back.
That pushback led that child to turn to self-harm as a teenager, which 60% of trans and non-binary kids engage in,
Jesus.
According to the Trevor Project. More than 50% consider suicide.
That for me was the turning point. I didn't want to see Ryland to go through that.
I'd rather have a living son than a dead daughter. I guarantee that if we had pushed back and done what a lot of parents do, I don't think that we would have...
Wait. Just an observation to make here. This makes a lot of sense. Okay? This dad is a firefighter. Alright? This dad is a firefighter, and you know what? Firefighters, almost universally, there are some exceptions, but almost universally, head and shoulders better than cops. Okay? Like a cop, they'll tell their like trans kid to go fuck themselves, okay? A firefighter, even a conservative one, will change their mind. Hey, Vicious Sound.
I don't think that we would have either one of the kids that you see before you here today.
Allowing him to live authentically and true to himself and be who he really feels like he is. When you get to know Ryland, you see just how proud and confident he is of himself.
Ryland's story got
Like, also, you're gonna tell me you look at this kid and you're like, you're not a boy, you're a girl. Like, yo, this kid just is a boy.
Attention in 2014 when a family YouTube video went viral, and Hillary has since written a book called Raising Ryland.
I never thought that I would be known for this like as well as I am, but really it's just a small part of who I am.
He just brushes things off his shoulders like it's
Okay, that PS5, PS9, you bring up a really good point. Because 40% of cops do engage in spousal abuse and domestic violence, and the other 60% of cops cover up for them. So good point. Good point.
fine. He moves on in his life, and he's just kind of think everything we've been through, he's just like learned to do that, and he's really good at it. I can.
Yeah, he just seems like an all-American. Like, I'm not gonna lie, he just seems like a kid who's gonna like be a really good asset to like his school football team. Okay.
Do that.
The Whittingtons believe sharing their story could make a lasting difference in another child's life, something they learned from that support group father nearly a decade ago.
I'm just here to make the ride smoother for others. You might be struggling right now, but we believe in you. This family, we might not know you, we might not know where you live, but you know, we understand you and we believe in you.
What extraordinary courage displayed by Ryland, his sister Brinley, father Jeff, and mom Hillary. I want to thank the
I'm not
Whittington
crying,
family
you're crying.
for speaking to us. It's not easy, particularly at a time when transgender issues have been politicized. People are afraid of what they do not understand, Dana. This family hopes their story will lead to more understanding, more acceptance, and ultimately more.
God damn. This was on. Look, guys, am I okay? I do not have an accepting family, and over the weekend, I went to I went to an event with my partner's family, and they were just so lovely and nice to me, and accepting, and like, my girlfriend had to leave to pick up her kid, and I was just kind of chilling with her family for a while, and I just realized how nice it was to be able to do that, because, you know, I'm out to my brother, and my brother says he accepts me, but I also haven't ever been invited to like babysit his kids again, you know, since I came out to him, or go to any of the kids' events or plays or whatever. And my dad doesn't accept me. And so stories like this hit me a little different, you know? They hit me a bit different. Sorry, 1 second. Too much makeup on to allow myself a full cry. Yeah, like, that's the thing, Jessica the Black, like, the idea, like, I saw someone say in chat, the idea that this is even a story is kind of sad. And I agree, but like, it is important to put them out there, you know? It just it hits my heart a bit, you know? You know, I just sometimes really miss my dad. Yeah, Entrama, I feel like whoever allowed this piece to go on Fox News probably got fired or is going to be fired in short order. Like, I cannot imagine that, somebody's head is rolling over this. Because this is the reaction you're getting from conservatives, right? Wait, that was Fox News? Yep. That was a positive story about trans people on Fox News, which then led to people like Matt Walsh absolutely fucking losing it. I've appeared on Fox and wait, I need a voice for him. I've appeared on Fox News many times. I appreciate the platform they've given me. If what I'm about to say ruins that relationship, so be it. We have to call this evil lunacy out of wherever we see it, especially on our own side. Today Fox ran a segment for Pride Month celebrating a trans kid who came out as a boy at the age of 5. The piece did not simply report on the controversy surrounding child transitioning, it outright promotes the practice. The reporter said the child announced a new gender as a toddler. Does Fox want us to believe that babies can choose their gender? This is the most extreme, radical, dangerous form of gender ideology, and it's being promoted on Fox News. The poor kid is 14 now with permanently altered body, condemned to live forever with an identity imposed as a small child. It is horrifying, evil, and sick, and it is what Fox chose to promote. I know for a fact that many people do not approve of this and never would have agreed to air radical far-left trans propaganda. But Fox reporter Brian Lennis chose to do this story, and someone at Fox News put it on the air. Everyone involved should be fired immediately. There was no report of surgery. To a lot of transphobes, even putting a kid on puberty blockers, which this kid is almost certainly on, is child abuse. To these people, puberty blockers are permanently destroying the body of kids, which is silly because puberty blockers are also used in much younger kids who are cisgender to treat early onset puberty. Shit, I thought you were doing a parody. Nope. Bread into toast. Those are his actual words. Now, there is a man by the name of Ben Shapiro. And he put together an entire episode of his show today around that news story we just watched. Okay? He built an entire show around that one 3-minute news clip, alright? We're about to go into it, and it is titled, Fox News Betrays Conservatives by Pushing Trans Propaganda. Stoudman, if you want us to watch this at 0.5 speed, you have to do $150 dono, okay? Like a $150 dues into my bank account, okay? Because this is an hour long.
Fox News features an entire.
This is an hour and 10 minutes long. This is an hour and 10 minutes long. If you want this to be 2 hours and 20 minutes long, $150 is the bare minimum. Now, if you guys want it to be sped up, we can do that for $75. Don't give chat ideas. Somebody might actually do it. Well, AJE, here's the problem. I exist under capitalism. And so far, we've had one of the slowest months for donos that we've had in a long time. Since November of last year. And look, I gotta wring some money out of this audience, okay? Minkuro, thank you for the 150 biddies. Never forget his sponsor segues. Hey, doormat scratch marks. Also, folks in the audience, if you're new here, please hit the follow button because we are currently 21 follows away from hitting 7,500 followers, and I'd really like to do that on this stream. Give the streamer money and nobody gets hoiked. That's true. Glam Pixie, thank you for gifting a sub. Is your audience denying you the compensation you deserve? Call 1-800-PEOPLE and Sons today, and we'll get you the stream donos you need to survive. All right, here we go. Ben Shapiro just looks evil to me. Here we go.
Fox News features an entire segment praising a family that transitioned a small girl. The Democratic Party tries to figure out how to dump Joe Biden on the side of the road, and Senate Republicans sign on to a gun control agenda. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show.
Ben Shapiro's a waste of a perfectly good twink.
The Ben Shapiro Show is sponsored by ExpressVPN. I talk about them every single show.
Oh.
Why haven't you gotten a VPN
No.
yet? Free ribeyes, $100 value to my listeners for a limited time
It's
only.
free
You heard right.
ribeyes. That's cool.
Great box. Ribeyes has quality. Well, one of the things that we know here in the United States is that virtually every major institution in the United States is dominated by the hard left. And this is particularly true when it comes to social issues. The momentum that the social left has had for the past several decades is just overwhelming. From corporate America to the government, from the educational system to the entertainment system, pretty much every institution in America is dominated by the left
He had two
in
ads back to
extraordinary
back,
fashion.
baby.
In this year's greatest indicator is the way that, for example, the Pride Progress flag completely overtook the Pride flag within 1 minute of its proposition during Gay Pride Month, LGBTQ plus minus divided by sign tilde Pride Month. Now remember, there used to be.
Also, chat, please retweet the live notification. Go to twitch.tv, not twitch.tv, twitter.com/riverboatjack and tweet out, or retweet rather, this tweet. I would very much appreciate it. Let's get the word out to some folks. Let's go, baby!
The gay pride flag that was just the rainbow. It was the same rainbow that Barack Obama so unifyingly showed on the White House in the aftermath of Obergefell. Because, of course, if America stands for anything,
It's pronounced Obergefell, not Obergefell.
it is for the proposition that all forms of sexual activity are morally equivalent. But that used to be the flag. The flag was just the rainbow pride flag. Then there was the proposition that it didn't include trans, and it also didn't include BIPOC people or something. And so you have the really, really ugly Pride Progress flag, which from an aesthetic perspective is just hideous. It's got the rainbow flag, but now it has this triangle that comes in from the side. So it looks almost like the Puerto Rican flag, but like with different.
Damn, if only you could, I don't know, like show it in like this space up in the upper right corner instead of trying to describe it weirdly. Okay, and also here's a cancelable opinion. Okay, here's you guys want an opinion I might be getting canceled for. Okay, all right, you guys want an opinion? Here we go. All right. I think that this flag it's fine. I don't have anything against it. But also I think it is aesthetically unpleasing to me. I would rather fly 2 flags or 3 flags. You know, one of each full flag than like just one flag that is a mishmash of several other flags or several other symbols in there, you know? It's mid at best. Yeah. Also, there's like the one with the circle. You guys know what I'm talking about here? There's like this yeah, there's also the circle one. I'm not entirely sure what the circle one is for anymore. The intersect circle. And like, it's fine if people like it. I just think that, like, for example, if someone is flying just like the traditional pride flag, that one shouldn't necessarily read ill intent into that. Like, oh, you're only flying the pride flag? Does that mean you don't support trans people? Does that mean you only support white cis gays? Like, you know, I don't want there to be the implication that if you aren't flying the perfect flag, you are a bigot. Progress flag is ugly, but also it's copyrighted in part so the creator can go after shitheads using it, so Ben Shapiro might be avoiding it for that. Oh, interesting. Interesting. Hail Swayback. That would... you know what? If that is the case... Alright, I'm back on board. I'm back on board, okay? I'm back on board with this flag if it is specifically a new design to prevent shitheads from using this flag, okay? Yeah, Jellyfish, there are some people who are like, oh, you think that this flag is aesthetically unpleasing? Well, clearly the only reason you think that is because you're against trans and black folks. I've seen people sharing that, and I don't like that implication or that conclusion at all. So you can't use it corporately? Yeah. Progress flag is on a Creative Commons license, so you can't use it for profit. Okay, that's cool. Anyway.
Colors, and it's really not an aesthetically pleasing flag. It was immediately taken over by every major corporation.
Who has the energy to care? You underestimate the online left, Jellyfish.
Everyone started flying the Pride Progress flag within a minute. Right? This thing did not exist 2 years ago, and today it is the only flag that is flown. The gay pride flag is now considered...
Ben Shapiro, as a gay, I can tell you that you are incorrect. There are plenty of rainbow pride flags without the triangle in it, okay?
Passé. We've moved beyond it. We've moved into a new world. Okay, the momentum with which that shift happened is just demonstrative of how quickly the cultural elites in all of these institutions pick up the most insane, radical arguments of the left and just mainstream them immediately. They don't think about them. They don't consider them. They don't determine whether these arguments are good or not. They just take them and they weaponize them immediately. And nowhere has this been truer than when it comes to radical gender theory and ideology. As I've talked about before, when it comes to LGBTQ plus minus divided by sign, a lot of the arguments in favor of T and Q.
Goddamn. He really got us on that one. He got us with the plus minus sign. The old jokey joke.
Run directly counter to the arguments for L and G. The arguments for L and G typically were born this way, we were made this way, we can't help our activity, and therefore you should basically leave us alone in the privacy of our own bedrooms, and that's it. And now the argument in favor of T is that there is no such thing as biological essentialism. Men and women do not exist. And also, men and women are not separate categories, which is the predicate for both.
Well, no, men and women are separate categories of gender. But male and female are different biological configurations, yeah. Also, Broco Lead, thank you very much for the follow. The argument here, like, isn't that sex doesn't exist, just that sex exists on a spectrum, and you can change sexual characteristics with medication and surgery. Like, that's pretty straightforward. Yeah, the sex exists on a bimodal spectrum. Exactly, Namretic. Exactly. The idea here that, like, trans people don't acknowledge biology is ridiculous. We have to deal with our biology in way more intimate ways than cisgender people generally have to. Like, we're well aware that there are biological differences between a trans woman and a cis woman. Like, yeah, obviously. None of us are denying that. All we're saying is that sex is bimodal. You can change certain sexual characteristics. and that gender is a social construct that is separate from sex, right? Like when you're walking down the street and you see like someone who has the big titties and someone who got the wide hips and someone who got, you know, like a form-fitting dress on and someone, and they got long hair, okay? And like face of makeup, okay? How do you know what gender they are? How do you know what gender they are? Do you need to like lift up their dress and like inspect their genitals before you come to the conclusion about what their gender is? Do you need to take a blood test to figure out, do you have a suitable amount of estrogen in you? Do you need to take a DNA test to figure out what your chromosomal makeup is? No. You don't. You read the social cues of that person and make an assumption about what their gender identity might be. So you are gendering someone on the basis of that social construct. What those social cues might be vary from civilization to civilization, from society to society. When we... Are you booba gender? And when we, like, talk about this, we're not talking about the biological reality. We might be talking or taking into consideration some secondary sexual characteristics, like breasts or long hair, but these are things that also vary. Like, men can have long hair. That's a thing that can happen. Men can also develop, like, breast tissue. That's a thing that happens. Like... The idea that Ben Shapiro only genders people on the basis of their biological reality is ridiculous, because that would mean he's a serial sexual assaulter. So the question is, and the question I have for Ben Shapiro is, do you go around routinely sexually assaulting people, or can you, like, admit that, like, gender and sex are two different things, because you use the social construct every goddamn day of your life when you're interacting with other people? Men can lactate. This is true. Men and trans women can lactate. There are scientific studies that prove this demonstrably. The reason men have nipples, by the way, is because given the right conditions, they can take on the job of lactating and feeding babies. You know, I would really love all of the conservatives who talk about the miracles of motherhood and breastfeeding to put their money where their mouth is and engage in some in feeding their child. You lazy freeloaders. There's a neurochemical root to gender and transgender people. It's not entirely social constructs. I disagree. There's a neurochemical root to gender and transgender people. I disagree because what gender is varies from society to society. You could entirely live in a, like, there's nothing inherent or biochemical that makes women wear dresses. There's no biochemical indicator that is like, oh, I must wear a tuxedo to a formal event. There's no biochemical in the world that makes you go, I really need to wear high heel shoes. That does not exist. Now, when you say there might be biochemicals that might make like a male brain or a female brain, that's a question we can talk about, right? That is definitely something that, you know, some studies have indicated, but I'm also not willing to say like the validity of trans people rests on whether or not like there's a neurochemical reaction that makes us trans. Trans people are valid whether or not that exists. This is the sort of thing me and Entrama were complaining about the other day. It's a discrepancy between gender identity and gender expression / norms. We colloquially refer to both as gender, but they are distinct things. Yeah. I'm not saying that either. I'm saying that's also a part of it. I disagree. I mean, chemicals definitely change our brains a lot. But, like, the idea that there are neurochemicals that play into whether or not you want to wear high heels, I think is a stretch. Everything the human touches is a construct. True. Let's see. I think they were saying there's a biochemical reason for gender identity. Again, I disagree with this because I believe that gender is a social construct. The idea that there is a biochemical reason for gender identity, I think that I can, let me put it this way. I can agree that there is a biochemical reason for how one feels when identifying with a gender identity, but gender identity itself is socially constructed. The gender norms and expectations are socially constructed and not at all related to brain chemistry. You know, like how you would express yourself as like a trans woman in ancient Greece would be very different from how you express yourself as a trans woman in like China today. I think there's a miscommunication here. Maybe because I'm not really understanding the in what you're trying to describe to me here. Take another shot at it. I hear Jangles argue that when you're talking gender identity, your gender identity is internal sense of self. There's a part of your biology, your brain. So that's a part of your biology. Your brain is a part of biology in a recent debate. Well, yeah. To a certain degree, you can argue that like everything is biology because you see everything through your brain. You know, brain in a jar arguments and all that. You're going a lot in on expression rather than like brain structure. The chatter was talking about identity, brain structure, that sort of stuff, your sense of self. Yeah, but let me put it this way. I don't think that your sense of self is inherently gendered. That's what I reject. I don't think sense of self is gendered. Gender is a learned thing that we then latch onto and identify with, but it is not an inherent part of our biology. The act of identification is, related to our biology, but like, there's no inherent part of you that is gendered.
The L and G. Okay, all of these arguments are in conflict with one another. The only way they are not in conflict is if you are directing them at a Judeo-Christian traditional moral superstructure. If you are taking all of these folks and saying, listen, I know you have nothing in common.
Yeah. Like, Entrama, again, like, he's like, oh, I'm cool with the lesbians and gays because they're intrinsically lesbian and gay. Nothing they can do about it. But now all of these other filthy degenerates.
We have a coalitional approach to taking down Judeo-Christian morality, and so we are going to band together, despite our differences, in order to tear down that morality. Then a lot of this starts to make sense. And a lot of the institutions of American society have bought in. Now, that means that if you are of traditional moral bent, if you're somebody who believes, for example, that natural law suggests that there are better and worse ways on a human level of conducting, for example, your sex life, if you're a person of traditional mores who believes that sex should be defined within marriage between a man and a woman, because sex is not merely about the physical pleasure that you get from sex. It is also about progeneration and creating a new generation of people. And it's about the fulfillment that male and female find in one another when they leave their parents' home and they create a family for themselves. If you believe any of that stuff, then the number of institutions upon which you can rely has been shrinking dramatically. And not only has it been shrinking dramatically, it's been shrinking in almost forceful fashion from the cultural arbiters. If you believe any of this stuff, the idea is that you must be censored. And if you believe even the basic propositions that undergird this stuff, like there are natural differences between men and women, those distinctions are the basis for all mammalian reproduction forever.
Public loser.
If you believe that sort of stuff, then you are considered a bigot. such that when What is a Woman, Matt Walsh's new documentary, which is the #1 streaming documentary in the United States from Daily Wire, it's fantastic, you should watch it. When it comes out, there's a hue and cry from wide elements of the media that we shouldn't be able to advertise this documentary. It hasn't been reviewed by any major reviewer in the United States, despite the fact it is the #1 documentary in the country on any streaming service.
Citation needed.
Because the idea is it must be silenced. Now, here's the thing. This institutional takeover has real and serious ramifications, because it turns out that when you churn out a bullhorn.
Yeah, no, the brain mouse. This all started because Ben Shapiro made an offhand comment about how, lesbians and gays were affirmed because they were, biologically born this way. And me trying to point out that it's not like that, like we shouldn't be predicating our arguments for trans acceptance on that alone when we live in a society of complicated social constructs. And then we went off on like a 40 goddamn minute long tangent.
Bullhorn is just promoting propaganda that is anti-biological essentialism, that is churning out anti-natural law,
thanks for the hype
anti-traditional
train, folks.
morality, anti-rules. What you get is an enormous number of
We made
very
it back.
confused and emotionally dysfunctional young people. And that's precisely what you're seeing. You're seeing a radical increase in the number of people who are identifying as a member of the quote-unquote non-heterosexual community, the non-exclusively heterosexual community, and it is predominantly in liberal areas. What the polls show is that if you're liberal, only about 2/3 of people who consider themselves, self-consider liberal, younger Americans, consider themselves exclusively heterosexual today, as opposed to, throughout human history, about 98%. And the reason for that is,
Damn, where are you getting your polling data, Ben Shapiro? How did you get polling data for 98% of society being straight for all of human history across the entire planet? That's crazy. When did the polls happen? No one's ever polled me about this. That's crazy. Bro. Also, what about all those societies in which you could be like stoned to death for being gay? Or like murdered for being trans? What about those societies? Do you think maybe that might have thrown off the polling data a little bit, Ben?
because so much of this is political. So much of this is about identity and about the belief that traditional structures of humanity are really, really bad, and those have to be torn down. And the more roles and rules that you shun, the more authentic you are in your very own person. And that is the propaganda that is being churned by the left day in, day out, all the time, without a doubt. And you can see proof of this. And Nancy Pelosi, for example, over the weekend, Nancy Pelosi was doing an episode of Drag Race. So the Speaker of the House of Representatives doing an episode of Drag Race, because drag has now become a mainstream American phenomenon wherein we're all supposed to pretend that there is nothing rule violating, or morally pernicious about men wearing women's clothing and pretending to be women. We're supposed to pretend that that doesn't violate any sort of moral strictures. We're supposed to pretend that all of this is essentially morally apathetic. We ought to be morally apathetic toward this stuff. Now, again, I'm not talking about whether we should restrict this stuff by law for adults. That's a different question. I'm talking about whether on a...
Yeah, it's definitely a really new, quintessentially American phenomenon. Definitely real new. No one's ever engaged in drag performances before. Definitely not a thing that's been around for fucking ever. Definitely not like a thing that was done to entertain the troops during World War II. Hey, Ben Shapiro, do you like the fact that the Allies stormed the beaches of Normandy? Did you know that the Allies were being entertained by drag performers while they were campaigning against the Nazis? Did you like the fact that they were able to keep high morale while also being able to kill Nazis? I do. Drag, one could argue, played a pivotal role in helping us to defeat the Nazis. One could indeed argue that. But we live in Ben Shapiro's world now, where drag is a new phenomenon that exists only now in the year 2022.
level. It is generally good for men to dress like women and women to dress like men. I'm of the belief the answer is no, because men are men and women are women, and the sexual distinction between the two is quite important to a thriving and flourishing society, not a society in hedonistic, narcissistic decline. Okay, but Nancy...
Isn't it true that women weren't allowed to act when theater was first created? Yes. When Shakespeare was writing his plays, they did Romeo and Juliet with an entire cast of men. Literally the entire, like, for a large chunk of the history of theater was performed only by men.
Pelosi appears on Drag Race, and what she has to say about this is really quite astonishing, because it speaks to what the left believes is the unifying feature of America. Now, traditionally, the unifying feature of America, if you go back to the founding fathers...
Yeah, Juliet was the OG femboy.
...is the idea that we have liberty from government, but very strong social institutions that undergird that liberty. In the words of John Adams, you need a strong social structure, because the Constitution was written, the wording of John Adams, the Constitution was written for a moral and religious people only. Without that, the passions of the mob would run through the boundaries of the Constitution like a whale through a net.
Oh yeah, no, Shakespeare and playwrights, famously heterosexual. Also, thank you for the attempt at the hype train, folks, but we didn't quite make it.
This has long been the idea of American...
We did not leave the station on that one.
Liberty. American liberty was always undergirded by the idea of American virtue. These two
trains broken down
came hand in hand. The notion was that only a virtuous people could be afforded liberty, because a non-virtuous people with liberty was going to devolve into libertinism, which is not exactly the same thing. Well, we are there, because the way that the left defines liberty is blowing up all the rules, blowing up all the rules. America, to them, is essentially the proposition that we can regulate every area of your life, except when it comes to your self-definition. When it comes to your self-definition, there, we not only have to allow you to do what you want to do on a governmental level, which, is arguable, but we have to cheer it. On a cultural level, we have to cheer it and forward it, and that's what America is really all about. America is about...
Avalon of Babylon, as someone who has attended numerous literature courses, I can confirm that a lot of kids today continue to argue that Shakespeare sucks dick, but for very different reasons.
Drag Queen Story Hour and Drag Race, according to Nancy Pelosi. It is not about a virtuous people upholding their virtue through the exercise of liberty, particularly at the local level, by building community and by having freedom from government for entrepreneurialism and self-definition in communal terms, that you end up with a better America. No, the idea is that what America really is about is high taxes, gun control, abortion, and drag races. So here's Nancy Pelosi talking about what makes America special.
Hell yeah, drag races. Get in them fast cars. Rosalind Faye, thank you for subscribing, and congratulations on the chat, baby. Oh my god. Oh my god. We're gonna play this back again. Okay. Oh my god. Oh my god. The fact that Ben Shapiro feels that he needs to clarify that all of the people on screen are men dressed as women is amazing. Amazing. Ben Shapiro over here, realizing, oh fuck, they look too good. They look too good. Yes, Queen, you look too good.
Abortion and drag races. So here's Nancy Pelosi talking about what makes America special.
Wait, Ben, why are you so upset about people exercising their freedom?
I'm sorry, this is dystopian stuff. It really is. This is what
Yes. Truly, truly dystopian.
Give a warm drag race welcome.
Look at these fabulous outfits. Look, this queen is dressed up like a sexy version of the main character from One Piece. Amazing. Wait.
About what makes America special.
Give a warm...
Look at this. Absolutely fabulous. She had the straw hat on and I don't know.
And stuff. It really is. This is what America's all about. We're so proud of you, men, for shirking all of your male societal roles and embracing dressing like women on national television.
Ben, and why are you against this freedom, Ben? I thought you were a libertarian.
That is Nancy Pelosi. That is what it's not just a thing that people do and that we ought to tolerate as a society because people act in ways that we don't like, but we don't want government to have enough power to crack down on that stuff because government with too much power can harm all of us. That's not the argument. The argument is this is an active good. You're adding truth and beauty to society by having men appropriate the costumes of women and then pretend to be women for purposes of television ratings.
Ben, you literally call yourself a libertarian. Why wouldn't you want TV stations to like pursue higher ratings? And also, why wouldn't you want to allow men to dress however they want? This seems like very anti-freedom, Ben.
This is what America is all about, says the Speaker of the House of Representatives. And of course, this bleeds down to the local level to the point where now you have an entire cadre of Americans who believe that it is good to show small children men dressed as women. And not just men dressed as women gyrating sexually in front of
men dressed as women being too sexy.
Small children. So, for example, over the last weekend, you had a family-friendly drag queen event in Austin, Texas, which is a contradiction in terms. There's no such thing as a family-friendly drag queen event. There just isn't.
Random chatter.
I'm sorry, the idea that men and women exist and that these are roles that are important to the flourishing.
Oh no, Ben is definitely too far gone. I'm doing this content for your benefit and for the benefit of anyone who stumbles across it in the future.
Society is so that the fact that this even has to be defended in intellectual terms demonstrates that we are a culture that is in a state of complete collapse. There are certain things that people just know, and it's okay to just know them.
Yes. That is an excellent point, cool kids philosopher. Do not examine your thoughts because you just know them. What an excellent point to make.
This is the point that Michael Oakeshott makes about rationalism. And we live in a society where people feel the need to rationalize all of the roles and rules that they've inherited. Well, can I come up with in my head why this is important? Now, it's important to try and reason out why a historic institution exists and whether it can be changed. But if the idea is that we are starting tabula rasa and that the burden of proof is on the people in favor of the roles to defend the roles, that the burden of proof is not on you to explain why the roles should be destroyed, then you have completely destroyed society. Because again, society is rooted in all of these fundamental rules and roles.
Ben, if your society, let me make the argument, Ben. If your society is so weak that a man dressing in a fabulous outfit causes it to collapse, then it deserves to perish. So there's nothing wrong with saying, I don't want my child viewing men who dress up as women and gyrate around on a stage. There's nothing wrong with that. True. So it's a good thing that the parents who bring their kids to family-friendly drag events are fine with their kids seeing people in drag dance or read books. Right? Like, no, like, the police aren't showing up at someone's house, woo, 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 and, like, open up, this is the police! You have to go to your mandated drag queen story time! You have 10 seconds to open the door before we begin shooting! You know, like, that's not happening.
And not even in sexual terms. You can say, listen, I think that boys should dress as boys and girls should dress as girls, and that is an active good. I believe that's an active good. Not only do I think there's nothing wrong with it, I think it's quite important because kids need rules. They need boundaries. They need guides. It turns out that civilization is something you have to teach to children. You have to civilize kids. But apparently,
the old white man's burden there, Ben Shapiro.
This is now considered passé. So you have family-friendly drag queen events in places like Austin, Texas. Does this seem family-friendly to you right here? A bunch of men dressed as women dancing around with each
I mean, they're pretty hot.
other, wearing scanty clothing, grinding their asses against one another. This seems very family-friendly to me, doesn't it? This is family-friendly stuff right here. Really, it's a family-friendly drag queen event.
I mean, they're fully dressed, Ben.
And by the way, if you think that we are not spending money on this sort of stuff, public money on this sort of stuff, you would be wrong. According to the New York Post, over two...
Oh my God, hot people were dancing. You know what? I've just found the filthiest, most degenerate dancing video. A public dancing performance with almost 5 million views on YouTube. It is disgusting. And it is allowed on a public platform and even promoted. One of the most viewed dance performances of all time on YouTube. Look at her, slapping her bare thigh suggestively in a shiny shirt. Oh my god, he's not even wearing pants. Oh my god. Oh my god. Look at this degeneracy. He's holding her shirt up. You know what? I'll take the possible L on this one for the DMCA. We can't have kids seeing this. Look at his rippling thigh muscles. Oh my god, look at, she's basically thrusting her pelvis at them. This is actually a very high level and high skill ballet performance with some of the best ballet performers in the world. But it's fine because it isn't men in dresses. If you want to watch the rest of it, here's the link. Here you go.
$200,000 is being spent on drag queen shows at New York City schools.
Ben Shapiro, did you know that hundreds of thousands of dollars are spent keeping ballet performances going? Teaching young girls and young boys how to be hussies and sleuts?
We're a society that now says it's good for small children to see all of this. If all of this makes you wonder about the future of Western civilization and maybe makes you consider your own mortality, well, you know, why not use that as impetus to do something useful like get life insurance? Policy Genius is your one stop.
Oh my god. Oh god.
The argument is, why are you focusing in on all of this stuff? Because it's not happening. And also, it's really good and important that it is, and you should subsidize it with your taxpayer dollars. And Nancy Pelosi should talk about how this is the best of America, and so should the President of the United States, Joe Biden. So according to the New York Post, New York is showering taxpayer funds on a group that sends drag queens into city schools, often without parental knowledge or consent, even as parents in other states protest increasingly aggressive efforts to expose...
Oh my god, what are these drag queens doing? Are they dragging these kids straight to hell?
...kids to gender-bending performers. Last month alone, Drag Story Hour New York City, a nonprofit whose outrageously cross-dressed performers interact with kids as young as 3, earned $46,000 from city contracts for appearances at public schools, street festivals, and libraries, city records show. Since January, the group has organized 49 drag programs in 34 public elementary, middle, and high schools. It boasted on its websites.
Ben, you realize they're not, like, going into the schools and having sex with the kids, right? They're going in and reading books to children. Like, you know, you've done that, Ben, and I guarantee you scared more children.
With appearances in all 5 boroughs. Since 2018, the group has received a total of $207,000 in taxpayer cash. So New York City, where you might be pushed in front of a subway, and also your taxpayer dollars will be used to indoctrinate kids in the joys of gender bending, which of course generally makes people's lives a lot worse. There's a minority of people for whom
Citation needed.
this is fulfilling and who lead a happier lives.
Wait, Ben, what exactly makes things so bad for people who participate in gender bending? Could it be the horrible way they're treated by their friends and family? That tends to be it.
Because of this, and that is called a minority of people. It's a very vast minority of people throughout human history. Flourishing societies rely. The fact, again, it is beyond insane that I have to explain this to people. A thriving society must have differences between men and women. Those natural differences between men and women are baked in. They're not just baked into the cake with regard to human beings. They're baked into the cake with regard to primates. They're baked into the cake with regard to all mammals. To pretend that societal rules that have evolved over the course of thousands of years are completely arbitrary and specious and made up by the evil patriarchy is to ignore biology. It is to...
Well, the societal rules around this haven't been consistent over thousands of years. You're just kind of making that up to make your argument.
Ignore history. It is to ignore how evolution works. It's to ignore everything in favor of a pie in the sky, cloud cuckoo land perception of reality in which you get to throw away all of the institutional pillars of society in favor of these idiotic ideas you have in your head. And then you're shocked when kids are wrecked by this. And you're shocked when you have wildly skyrocketing rates of mental health problems among young children. Why would this happen? Well, because of you, because you decided that all the guardrails should be removed. And it turns out that basically what childhood is sliding down a very curvy mountainside in the rain in a car that doesn't have any sort of tread on the wheels. And what
the fuck are you talking about, Ben?
you as a parent are supposed to do is you are supposed to line up in front of your child so that that slide down the mountain into adulthood is slow. And you're also supposed to make sure beforehand that there are guardrails around the road so the kid doesn't fall off. We've removed all the guardrails, and then we have said that any adult that is in front of the kid to prevent that car from just skidding.
What? Okay, so you're in a car with no brakes and flat wheels, and you're going down a wet road that's on a hill, but someone's removed the road barriers, but somehow you're the parent and you're in the car with the child, but you're the only thing between that kid and falling off a precipice. But also the car doesn't have brakes and is sliding down the mountain, so it's just gonna go over the hill anyway. In this scenario, does that mean that all of the kids in the United States are going to be trans, Ben Shapiro? What? I don't understand the analogy. A curvy mountain and it's raining. Okay.
Off the road is now an impediment to that child's self-fulfillment. So as that child flies through the air off the road, we're supposed to pretend that look, the kid's flying. No, the kid's falling. The kid's falling because of you.
Wait, how are you? What? Okay.
And this is what our society has done through in every element. And again, this all bleeds down from the idea that it's not just about tolerance for people who live different lifestyles. It's not just about tolerance for people who have different emotional or sexual orientations. It's not about any of that. It's about celebration. The entire society must celebrate. Not only must the entire society celebrate, the entire...
No one is coming into your home and forcing you at gunpoint to go to Pride, Ben. Guarantee you, no one wants you there.
The entire society must propagandize on behalf of this sort of activity. So, for example, I mean, this is insane. Postmates is a company that delivers things to you, right? You order food via Postmates. That was my impression. I was not aware that Postmates was actually a BDSM site teaching you about anal sex, but apparently that is what Postmates is now.
Wait, does that mean I can order up some food and a sexy sausage, if you know what I'm saying?
So Postmates, in honor of Pride Month, put out a video and a tweet essentially telling people what to eat. I've been informed by my producers that this is what this commercial is about, because frankly, I found it somewhat puzzling. Apparently, this is about what kinds of food you ought to eat so as not to have messy diarrhea before you engage in anal sex. This is being
based Postmates. Postmates teaching about how to bottom in a healthy way.
Promoted by Postmates. Postmates was bought by Uber in a $2.65 billion all-stock deal back in 2020. This is an enormous American...
Wait, Ben, why are you upset about people learning how to have good anal sex? Are you, like... Does he want people who have anal sex to be, like, getting like, poop in the anal sex? Like, what? I don't understand. What do you want? Oh yeah, that's right. He only gets dry pussy. That's right.
Company. And it is propagandizing on behalf of anal sex in its marketing. It's a food company. It's a food delivery company. Here is what this looks like.
If you're a top, it seems like you can eat whatever you want.
Based.
But if you're a bottom, you're expected to starve? Not this pride. Introducing the bottom-friendly menu from Postmates. We teamed up with Dr. Evan Goldstein from Bespoke Surgical to bring you a menu of bottom-friendly foods backed by science. The problem with these foods is they don't dissolve in water, which could cause a traffic jam in your digestive system, making a mess of your evening. Soluble fibers and protein are the key to having some good, clean fun. These all digest easily and slowly while feeding your good gut bacteria, which makes sushi a great bottom-friendly option. There's no right or wrong way to bottom, but if you're planning on getting peachy this pride, the bottom-friendly menu on Postmates has the kinds of foods that could keep you feeling good.
Are you
Okay. So, is Ben upset about this because he thinks that kids will be going through the Postmates menu and find the bottom-friendly menu, and then suddenly they'll become gay?
So yeah, you have your major American corporations now stumping in favor of anal sex. So yes, it's.
I mean, is it in favor of anal sex, or is it just like a clever way of marketing and informing, and also like, I don't think that they're necessarily pro anal sex. They're pro making money. Their business has been their primary goal is making money.
It's all about the celebration. It's all about. I mean, by the way, they then defended that on Twitter by saying, quote, exactly, we're tired of heterosexual sex being the main focus of sexual education. Homosexual sex, specifically bottoming, are all too often omitted and stigmatized. Not this year. Happy Pride.
Wait. Ben, do you just not want kids to know that homosexual sex exists? Again, I love it when conservatives make this argument, because it's weirdly like, the implication is weirdly that like, gay sex is just so good that once you know about it, once you have it, it's just gonna be magical. You're never gonna go back. Once you go gay, you ain't never gonna go back.
The way is presumably the description.
I mean, yes, getting fucked well as a bottom is a magical experience.
Of a person who is the receiving partner in anal sex. We're tired of heterosexual sex being the main focus of sex. First of all, I'm not aware that there should be widespread sexual education in the first place via our public institutions, given the fact.
Oh, that's right. Ben Shapiro's in favor of higher rates of child sexual abuse. I forgot about that.
That for literally hundreds of thousands of years, people, and all mammals, as it turns out, figured out how to procreate without some dumbass gender theorist explaining to them how a penis...
Hey, Ben, for hundreds of thousands of years, mammals also raped each other a lot. But you know what? With education, we can change the rate at which that happens, can't we?
This goes into a vagina. But instead, we're tired of heterosexual sex being the main focus of sexual education. Again, it is all about the notion that traditional moral structures are bad and inhibiting, and all forms of sexual activity.
Wait, no. No one... This tweet is not saying that heterosexual sex is bad, just that homosexual sex should also be included in sex education. Which makes sense.
Activity are morally equivalent. And this is being pushed by the greatest forces in our society. And now, there's one group of people who you would imagine would not push this stuff. And there's one group of folks you would imagine should not push this stuff. And that would be conservatives. And if you are a conservative, then you should be pushing in favor of the idea that sex is a wonderful and beautiful thing, and it should be restricted to the confines of marriage with the person with whom you are presumably...
What? But Ben, you seem to be really upset at other people, like, you know, using their freedom to have gay sex outside of marriage.
Trying to have kids as a general rule. The person with whom you're okay having kids, the person you have decided to create a life partnership with. The family matters. Sex is an important, romantic, wonderful piece of a larger relationship that you have with your heterosexual spouse. This is a general notion in conservatism that has been upheld by literally all of human history and evolution. Okay, but apparently now, the institutions of our society have become so corrupt that even conservative institutions purportedly...
There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house.
I said certified freak. 7 days a week. Wet ass P word. Make that pull-out game weak. Yeah, you effin' with some wet ass P word. Bring a bucket and a mop for this wet ass P word. Give me everything you've got for this wet ass P word. Beat it up, N word. Catch a charge. Extra large and extra hard. Put this P word right in your face. Swipe your nose like a credit card. Hop on top if I want to ride. I do a Kegel while it's inside. Spit in my mouth. Look in my eyes. This P word is wet. Come take a dive. It continues along these lines. And it gets significantly more vulgar. Like a lot more vulgar. Conservative institutions are pushing propaganda. If all of this insanity is keeping you up at night, let me recommend that you get a Helix sleep mattress, because otherwise you're never going to sleep.
Oh my God.
And this brings me to, again, this is the most disturbing thing that I have seen in quite a while. Not because of what it says. I've seen this sort of content on CNN, MSNBC, Good Morning America for that matter. But because of where this appeared. So this appeared on Fox News on Friday. And the fact that this appeared on Fox News, a purportedly conservative network that stands for the values of traditional American conservatism, that believes in Judeo-Christian values, and that it is propagandizing openly on behalf of transing small children, because that's what this segment is. It was a...
Oh no, Ben. Now Fox News is transing the kids.
5-minute segment about why it is not just okay, it is good to try to turn your little girl into a little boy.
True, it is good to make sure your kid does not want to kill themselves.
And I want to go through it in detail because it is suggestive of how the insane amorality and immorality of the left have completely penetrated mainstream.
Completely penetrated, huh?
Conservative institutions, because everybody is so afraid of just saying no. This was on Fox News, and this is unbelievable to me. It's unbelievable to me. And frankly, as Matt Walsh has said, if I don't appear on Fox News because I'm saying this, well, so be it. But somebody is going to have to call out the fact that this is too important an institution for the right to simply let it go. It really is. Right? Again, if MSNBC or CNN did this segment and be like, okay, well, that's par for the course. But Fox News, there are few enough conservative outlets, and Fox News being the largest, it kind of matters. If Fox News starts embracing the radical left gender ideology that the left espouses, it's no longer conservative and it can't be trusted. Honest to goodness, I don't know what they're thinking, but this is insane. So this appeared on...
Very true. If you are conservative, stop watching Fox News.
On Fox News on Friday.
If you saw me walking down the street, you wouldn't think anything different.
14-year-old Rylan Whittington is a typical Southern California teenager. And the Whittingtons, along with mom Hillary, dad Jeff, and sister...
I mean, we did just watch this.
Again, this is on Fox News. This is Fox News saying it is good to trans the children. Before the kid could speak?
Yeah, that definitely seems like a family that went out of their way to trans their child.
She was saying she didn't want... First of all, since when do 2-year-olds make decisions? Okay, I have a 2-year-old. My 2-year-old this morning, I went into her room, and she was lying in her crib, and she had a large pee-filled diaper, and I said, is it just pee or is it poo? And she said, it's pee, and naturally there was poo inside. Is this the kind of person you want making decisions about their lifelong, quote-unquote, gender identity? Should I take my 2-year-old seriously when she expresses her needs, wants, and desires? Because if I did, she'd be wearing her sky pajamas all day long, every day, dirty, filled with urine. So no, my 2-year-old does not get to make decisions. I love her. She's sweet. She's 2. It's because I love her that there are rules and because I am the parent. But here's Fox News promoting the...
Okay, but then what if your child started cutting themselves because you made them so miserable?
idea that kids, before they can speak, can pick membership in the opposite gender. Kids don't even know the alphabet at this point. The kid literally, it says in the report, does not know how to talk. Does not know how to talk. And the parents are like, oh, well, that must be...
Oh, fun fact for all y'all. Let's see. Here's the Mayo Clinic, one of the foremost experts on health in the world, saying, let's see here. Wait, where is it? Ah, here we go. Most children typically develop the ability to recognize and label stereotypical gender groups such as girl, woman, and feminine, and boy, man, and masculine between ages 18 and 24 months. Most also categorize their own gender by age 3 years, meaning that by the age of 3, children typically have the ability to vocalize their gender identity. Now, that doesn't mean it's a surefire thing, but it does mean that kids can say, hey, I think I'm a boy, or I think I'm a girl, around that time. Some trans people, or some trans kids, are able to communicate with their parents at 2 years old. Yeah, that's a thing that can happen. I keep hearing trans people say they knew when they were 5. And some don't learn that they're trans until later. You know? And when some people, when they figure out that they're trans, don't know, like, what exactly their gender identity is. Are they a trans woman? Are they a trans man? Are they non-binary? Are they gender fluid? Like, yeah, the identity part of this can be really, really complicated. Love the content already, being really informative here, and dunking on Ben Shapiro is always a plus. Ah, Sheckley! You should stick around. We do this on the regular. So, again, when we're talking about this, yes, children develop gender identity relatively early on. Typically, like the first 3 to 4 years of life, children's brains are wired almost entirely to pick up social cues and learn about their environments. Public Loser, thank you for gifting Sheckley a sub. Ooh, hiccup. And so, yeah, they learn about gender identity really early on. I said things about wishing I was a boy at around 4 to 5 years old, but it wasn't supported, so I went back into the closet until 16. Yeah, like, one of my early gender memories, right, is from when I was, like, 5 or 6 years old, and I would walk around on my tiptoes, and I was pretending to be in high heels, but I knew that that wasn't a boy thing to say, so I kept it to myself because I knew that my parents would not think that that was okay to do. And essentially, like, yeah, it turns out there's a reason when I was like 5 years old that I really wanted to do girl things and not boy things. That went beyond just, like, personal preference for playing with, like, action figures rather than dolls, you know? I used to get in trouble by my babysitter for doing cross-gender play stuff. Yo, that sucks. If we're not taught the language, we don't develop the concept, even if reality is screaming it at you. This is why we need to teach these things to kids. Exactly. The language helps a lot. Did you wear a towel like it was long hair? No, but that was mostly because I didn't know how to, like, fold the towel, you know? So Ben Shapiro is just wrong here. And he's wrong from like a biological perspective and from just like an academic perspective. Because we have research on this. We have a ton of research on early childhood development. And the idea that, well, you just shouldn't listen to your kid and they should do what they're told is inevitably something and a parental policy that leads to kids hating their fucking parents. You know, like, kids internalize when they hear their parents, reject parts of their identity that are important to them. Kids hear that, and they just get better at hiding things from their parents. They learn that it is not safe to talk about who they are or what they think with their parents. Ben Shapiro here is raising a child who is going to be afraid of him if they do not conform to what he wants to see from them. And I find that very sad.
Be the opposite gender, which means that this is Munchausen syndrome by proxy. That's all this is. These parents have decided that they wanted to trans their kid.
Damn, that's a really big syndrome name. Where did you get that? From reading medical textbooks? Damn, does that mean you trust when psychologists diagnose Munchausen's by proxy syndrome, but for some reason you don't trust the same psychologists or doctors when they diagnosed gender dysphoria in children? Especially when they do so over the course of years of seeing said child? That's wild. That's wild. Weird how conservatives pick and choose what they believe when it comes from doctors. You know, pick and choose. Oh, you said this one thing that I agree with? You diagnosed this one thing that I agree with? Okay. That's great. You diagnosed this other thing? No. You don't know anything. The medical establishment has a giant LGBTQ conspiracy. Like, literally, they will fall back. They will be like, yes, the medical establishment is trustworthy. And then, but also you shouldn't get a vaccine. You know, you shouldn't do that. The medical establishment is trustworthy, but also transing people, just not good. Don't look into the fact that there's over a century of science behind it. Colinius? Thank you for the follow.
And because they wanted to trans their kid, they were going to make up. And how do I know this? Because by the time this kid was 5, mom was writing books and going on national TV about this.
Yeah, well, not because she was trying to capitalize on it, but because she had a YouTube video go viral, Ben. And people gave her a shit ton of media attention. Because it was pretty revolutionary, like 10 years ago, to love your trans kid.
By the time the kid was 5.
Yeah.
That's about the parents. That's not about the kid. They're horrible for this little girl. It's insane. And Fox News promoting it.
When Ryland came out at age 5, a few years later, he had the full support of his parents.
Initially, there was some pushback from us in trying to understand this.
We were confused like most people are. We thought that gender and sexuality were the same thing. It took us a while to figure out that those two things are different and that children actually do recognize their gender identity very young. Some of them, not all.
But they listened to Ryland and to Hillary's conservative faith.
For me, it's just a deep spiritual belief that...
Okay, stop it right there. This is just open propaganda. Hillary's conservative faith, really? Tell me about how her conservative faith says there's no such thing as male or female and boys can be girls. Please explain. Please explain how conservative faith tells you. Again, now we're speaking of faith context. When we talk about transgenderism, I don't cite the Bible. But when you start talking about conservative faith, which suggests to me some sort of biblical adherence, how do you explain the opening of Genesis, which specifically says male and female he made them? Please explain.
Hey, Ben, you know what else isn't mentioned in Genesis? Like, fucking open heart transplants. Those aren't mentioned in Genesis either, Ben. You think that if you traveled back in time to, like, ancient times and were like, hey, we have this newfangled thing that we can do where we cut open a dead person, remove their heart, and then we cut you open and put their heart into you, that they would look kindly on that procedure either? Ben, what are you doing? Like you think people in the olden days would be like, oh yeah, that's a really cool medical advance? Or would they like stone you for being a fucking witch who like steals people's hearts? Yeah, you know what else we didn't have back in ye olden times? We didn't have wisdom teeth removal surgeries. Okay? Like you travel back even to like medieval Europe. You don't have to go back to like ancient Egypt. You travel back to medieval Europe, you're gonna be burned as a witch. I'm pretty sure Jesus preached for love of all people, love of fellow human beings. I'm pretty sure that conservative faith is what this woman was referring to in that Fox News segment. But Ben Shapiro wouldn't know anything about love or caring about other human beings. Because Ben Shapiro, for all of his bluster about Judeo-Christian values, has just become a preacher for hate. Okay? He's no different from any evangelical pastor screaming about demons. He just does it in a slightly more secular context. It's true, Ben Shapiro isn't in the Bible. He's not biblical.
How your conservative faith says, by the way, the Bible specifically says men are not to dress like women and women are not to dress like men. Please explain how it is that you believe that your conservative faith justifies taking a baby girl and turning him into a socially
Did you hear it? Did you hear it? Even Ben Shapiro doesn't believe his own bullshit. Even Ben Shapiro doesn't believe his own bullshit.
Taking a baby girl and turning him into a socially transitioned baby boy who will always be a girl and who will now spend the rest of her life in this conflict with her own biology. And this is what Fox News is pushing. This is insane.
Yo, Ben Shapiro has to work overtime to be as transphobic as he is.
Insane and insulting to its audience and insulting to reality, by the way, because the whole thing is just pure propaganda, as we will see.
You believe in God and he, created.
Yeah, Ben, you definitely look at this this young man and think that's a girl. Yeah, 100% Ben. No one seeing this. If you didn't know like someone in this family was trans, you would not pick him out as the trans one, okay? Guarantee you, if you knew someone in this family was trans, Ben Shapiro would point either to the dad as like having just come out as like a trans woman, or to like this little girl over here, or maybe maybe even the mom. The young man there is literally the last person I would choose as like the trans one on this, and I'm better at picking out who's trans than most people.
Created us the way he wanted us. Well, then yes, he created Ryland just the way he is.
And
so that's why he needs. That's why he created Ryland the way is, which is why we're going to need to put puberty blockers in Ryland's blood.
Oh, you mean God creates people just the way they're supposed to be, Ben? Does that mean you don't believe in like open heart surgery to fix congenital defects for newborns? Because clearly that's fixing that you're trying to improve on God's work. Clearly God made it just how he intended it, Ben. Why are you trying to save babies? Why are you trying to save those babies with modern medicine? Maybe modern medicine is actually good? That's the crazy leftist position here, right? The crazy leftist position is that modern medicine is good, and we should utilize that to the best of our ability. Oh yeah, no, Toka Ashley, he's so fucking mad that they look like a traditional Republican family. They look like a traditional conservative family to him. They're white. They're like, the dad's a firefighter. The mom's like prim and proper. Like they they have like all of the conservative check marks going for them, except that they love their trans kid. That's the one way that they deviate from the ideal conservative family. And it drives him insane. Because they fucking hate us so goddamn much. Can't allow that conservative family to love their kid.
So God created this. We need to put puberty blockers in it, and also maybe add a penis later on, and cut off healthy breasts through messed up. If we go through,
Hey Ben, what about the practice of cutting off healthy foreskin? What about that practice?
full transition, this is where it's going. Full on hormonal suppressants, testosterone treatments, pumping hormones into the body, changing the body's construction, changing the health outcomes, cutting off healthy breast tissue, because that's the way God made it, says mom with her conservative faith on Fox News.
I mean, the way God makes penises is with foreskin, Ben. Why you cutting off babies who can't consent to that?
They met in support groups.
There was a father who was sitting across the table. He says, "You have no idea how lucky you are to be here," which kind of took...
Yeah, also, if you get your kid on puberty blockers relatively early, you don't need, like if they're a trans boy, they don't need to have top surgery because they never grow breasts.
Back. I didn't at that point consider myself lucky to be there. And he said,
Why is he talking about the Bible anyway? Isn't he Jewish? He is Jewish, Leigh McGee, but he knows his audience is primarily conservative Christians.
Our child had displayed this gender dysphoria or this gender misalignment at the same age that Rylan has. And we didn't listen, and we pushed back.
That pushback led that child to turn to self-harm as a teenager, which 60% of trans and non-binary kids engage in, according to the Trevor Project. More than 50% consider suicide.
That, for me, was the turning point. I didn't want to see Rylan to go through that.
I'd rather have a living son than a dead daughter.
This is propaganda. Okay, that's pure Trevor Project propaganda. The idea that your choice is between a suicidal girl and a perfectly happy boy is nonsense. It's nonsense. Longitudinal studies show the suicidal ideation rate among LGBT youth is way higher than among cisgender youth.
Yeah. That's right, Ben. I wonder why that could be. Ben, the suicide rate is higher because of people like you. Imagine how your child would feel if you told them, no, you're not trans, and then, they had to repress themselves for a goddamn 2 decades before they were free from your influence.
Way higher, and it remains that way no matter the treatment, no matter so if you take a kid who is confused, and you refuse the possibility of desistance, which is what happens for the vast majority of kids who have...
Hey, fun fact here. If you accept your kid as trans and allow them to experiment with their gender identity, you know what happens? Desistance does happen. That is something that happens. But you know what else happens? If they do happen to be a long-term trans, we'll say, their likelihood of suicidal attempt goes down to 1/17 of what it was if just one parent accepts them as who they are. Okay, if just one parent accepts them as who they are and for who they are, their suicide rate goes down to be incomparable to that of cisgender straight kids. The solution is just accepting trans kids and treating them with dignity and respect and loving your kids, whether they are trans or cis. And loving your kids does not look like forcing them into the closet because you think that that's what's best for them.
Who have gender questioning at young ages. The vast majority, somewhere between 75% and 90% of kids who have gender questioning at a young age will grow out of it. Many of them turn out to be gay, but many of them grow out of it, whether it's gay or straight, whatever. When you stop that, when you start socially transitioning a child and reinforcing in the child the notion that this kid is meant, what do you think that kid's going to do? Now the kid has to stand up to mom and dad in order to say, no, actually, I am a girl. This is madness. And I'm not going to get over the fact that this is on Fox News because it demonstrates how the mainstream institutions of our society, including the ones that you may trust as a conservative, are now stabbing you directly between the shoulder blades with this kind of stuff.
If we had pushed back and done what a lot of parents do, I don't think that we would have either one of the kids that you see before you here today.
Allowing him to live authentically and true to himself and be who he really feels like he is. When you get to know Rylan, you see just how proud and confident he is of himself.
Rylan's story got international attention in 2014 when a family YouTube video went viral, and Hillary has since written a book called Raising Rylan.
Okay, pause it there. There's a shock. In 2014, this kid is now 14. Okay, I may not be amazing at math. The kid is 14. That means he became an international superstar trans kid at age 6. At age 6. Does this seem like safe parenting to you, or does this seem like child abuse? Taking a small kid, socially transitioning the small kid at the age of 6 after saying that the kid was exhibiting the notion that she wanted to be a he before she could talk. And then you're writing books and going on national TV. Does it seem like really on Fox News? Okay, keep going.
I never thought that I would be known for this like as well as I am, but really it's just a small part of who I am.
He just brushes things off his shoulders like it's fine. He moves on in his life, and he's just kind of, I think everything we've been through, he's just like learned to do that, and he's really good at it. I could never do that.
The Whittingtons believe sharing their story could make a lasting difference in another child's life, something they learned from that support group father nearly a decade ago.
I'm just here to...
Oh, by the way, when Ben Shapiro talks about like the rate of desistance in trans kids being like 94%, so are we just allowed to ask questions in chat? You're allowed to ask questions in chat. You're also allowed to just like chat in chat. Incredible Mac, thank you very much for the follow. And folks, we are 19 follows away from hitting 7,500 follows on this channel, which is cool as shit. So this desistance study, right? A lot of these desistance studies come from back in the day. They come from like, the 90s, 80s, when this stuff wasn't really studied and like transness wasn't really studied. What was studied in these was largely that gender nonconformity, which, in the 70s, 80s, and 90s largely meant like, oh, my kid is wearing a dress. I clearly need to bring them to the clinic. And so a lot of the studies that focused on this weren't about trans people. They were about, what does desistance mean? Meaning that desistance usually refers to people or kids who identify as trans, but then eventually change their mind and go back to identifying as cisgender. The idea of desistance is often used to make it seem like trans people are illegitimate, right? Or trans kids or trans healthcare is illegitimate. So these are largely predicated on from a time where a kid wore a dress or wanted to play with Barbies, and their parents brought them to a gender sex clinic, and they were diagnosed with gender dysphoria, and then later desisted and became and were gay boys instead of trans women. So let's see here. Also, it was just much easier to get a diagnosis of gender dysphoria in the past. It was previously called gender identity disorder. Today people who would be diagnosed with gender dysphoria would not fall under the very large umbrella of what was previously diagnosed as gender identity disorder. That was a large umbrella, and now it is a much more specific thing that is diagnosed. Yeah, desistance. You got it right there. Desistance is basically someone who identifies as trans or is diagnosed with like some form of gender nonconformity, who then later conforms and becomes like cisgender, or reverts back to being cisgender, however you want to put it. So I've been on HRT for about a year now, and I've seen almost zero physical changes. Basically, all I've gotten are negative side effects. I still look very masked at 19, and my stubble never goes away, even after shaving right out of the shower. Do you think I'm being impatient, or should I talk to my doctors about adjusting my HRT again? I was thinking injectables from pills. Yeah, Alfie, definitely talk with your doctor. And injectables, I've heard, can have a better effect for people who aren't responding to pills very well. So that might be the route you want to go. And additionally, stubble is, like, I've been on HRT for 4 years now. I still have to deal with my stubble. I had laser hair removal, which helped a lot. And I've been on and off of electrolysis to remove it from my face. But that can be a really long process. So, yeah, definitely talk to your doctors about maybe switching to injectables. And talk with them also, just like where are your to see where your estrogen levels are at, where your testosterone levels are at, to like try and figure out if you need to, relative to like where like the baselines of those are for cis folks. Even women get hair on their face. Well, I think it's a natural thing. It absolutely is, baby ducky. And women absolutely do as well. So it's not as huge a deal as a lot of people think it is, but I know it can be really bothersome. Yes, and also make sure you're comfy with your doctor. That's a big deal. Let's see. Oh, interesting. Also, one of the bigger desistance studies is criticized because the researchers in that study defined anyone who didn't return to their clinic as desisting. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, basically there's huge amounts of methodological issues with these studies on desistance, and all of the studies that are methodologically sound, like, pretty much do not agree with the idea of like 94% of kids desist in their transition. The reality is that most kids play around with their gender identity, but there's a big difference between playing around with your gender identity and experimenting to figure out who you are, and experiencing gender dysphoria so severe that you need to transition. Anyway, the Purple Fox, thank you for hitting that follow button. I really appreciate it. We are now 18 follows away from 75 hundo. And if you haven't hit the follow button yet, please do. And chat, I've been streaming for 8 hours, and I'd very much appreciate more subs, bits, donos, exclamation point tips, all that good stuff. Alfie, thank you for hitting the follow button too. And I hope that your meeting with your doctors goes well. And consider coming back and sharing how it goes. So if a person visited 3 different clinics, they desisted thrice, apparently, according to this research study, which seems pretty flawed to me. Anyway.
To make the ride smoother for others. You might be struggling right now, but we believe in you. This family. We might not know you, we might not know where you live, but, you know, we understand you and we believe in you.
Just a pure propaganda piece.
What extraordinary courage displayed by Ryland, his sister Brinley, father
I wonder if this guy is about to get fired.
Jeff, and mom Hillary. I want to thank the Whittington family for speaking to us. It's not easy, particularly at a time when transgender issues have been politicized. People are afraid of what they do not understand, Dana. This family hopes their story will lead to more understanding, more acceptance, and ultimately more love.
Just pure propaganda, pure insane propaganda. People are afraid of what.
Yeah, his name is Brian Lennis, is gay and has talked openly about working for a conservative company as a gay minority and being accepted at Fox News. Maybe don't work at Fox News.
Understand your agenda. What if we are afraid of is the agenda? Because the agenda is...
How the flip did this make it onto Fox? A gay reporter basically subverted their culture, their company culture, to put it on TV, which is amazing.
Garbage.
Honestly, it's amazing he had enough agency to actually pull that off.
And because it's harming children, and because it's deliberately promoting propaganda that is based not in science, but in ideological nonsense rooted in opposition to Judeo-Christian values and traditions and mores and rules and roles. What if...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're propagandizing people to be friendly to those who are different from them.
That's what we are concerned about. And what if we're particularly concerned when it starts taking over major American conservative institutions like Fox News? If you're a Fox News viewer, you should think very seriously about whether you wish to give a company that promotes this kind of stuff your business. Seriously. I want to watch Fox News. I'm friends with a huge number of people who work at Fox News, including most of the hosts. And I know that most of the hosts do not agree with Fox News becoming a propaganda outlet on behalf of the most radical left agenda on this sort of stuff. They can't. There's no way they do. I've talked to many of them, and I know they don't, as a matter of fact. The fact that management, I assume, crammed this down or went ahead with this because this was greenlit. It was a fully produced segment, which cost Fox money. It's a betrayal of Fox's audience. It's a betrayal of many of the people who work at Fox. And more than anything, it's a reinforcement of the deep rot that has taken place at the core of our institutions, including in many conservative institutions, which are either too cowardly to defend values that matter or have joined full scale in the attack on those values. Alrighty, in just 1 second, we're going to get to Joe Biden, who apparently is now being thrown on the side of the road for dead by his own party. Well, folks, when we talk about the insanity of...
I'm confused. Did he compare the agenda to being anti-Christian and anti-science in the same sentences without some substance? I shouldn't be surprised, but wow. Yeah, the Incredible Mac. Yes. He's just slamming buzzwords together because he knows that's what passes for commentary to his audience. Yeah, radical left Fox News. It did hurt Ben's fees. You can tell he's deeply upset. He named the entire episode Fox News betrays conservatives by pushing trans propaganda. He's hurt.
Of our current cultural moment, let me just remind you, what is a woman is changing that culture. It's a massive success. It's changing the entire conversation. Finally,
it's a massive success. Please, citation, please.
Finally, people are beginning to ask serious questions about whether a boy can be a girl or a girl can be a boy. And maybe the pushback has begun to the extent that...
Yes, no one has ever seriously asked those questions before in academia 50 to 100 years ago. Or maybe even beyond that, in the late 1800s, say. Like, I don't know, maybe some kind of academic or scholar or researcher of some kind by the name of Magnus Hirschfeld. Maybe not. This is the first time anyone's asked it.
When outlets like Fox News push propaganda on this sort of stuff, you can push back too. It's a must-see. Be sure to watch it. Whatisawoman.com if you haven't already. Tomorrow, June 14th, The Daily Wire is premiering another amazing piece of content, our brand new film, Terror on the Prairie. So we made you a promise. You remember when Disney Plus canceled?
Oh shit! Their new movie with that Mandalorian lady,
Gina Carano, for the great crime of being conservative. Well, 2 days after Gina was canceled, we announced she would be starring in and producing our next original film. And tomorrow, June 14th, we are keeping our promise. The full uncanceling is upon us. Gina is celebrating the premiere of her brand new film with The Daily Wire, Terror on the Prairie. We proved they can't cancel us if we don't let them. Terror on the Prairie is a gritty Western. Gina's personal redemption story shines through in her leading role. She doesn't pull any punches, that is for sure. I'm really excited for everybody.
You know, the longer he talks about it, the more convinced I become that she's going to be absolute dog shit in it.
To see the film, it's a good old-fashioned Western without the wokeness. It is produced by...
Oh yes, by the way, she was fired from her role on The Mandalorian for posting a meme comparing how conservatives are treated in the modern day to the Holocaust. So, you know, yeah, for those who don't know, Gina Carano was fired for saying that she and other conservatives have it as bad as Jewish people during the Holocaust.